Polling is underway for the Australian general election since morning, as opinion polls suggest that Labour Prime Minister Anthony Albanese could get a lead over Conservative challenger Peter Dutton. Voters in bathing suits were seen casting their ballots at Sydney's Bondi Beach. A record 8 million out of 18 million eligible voters had already cast ballots before Saturday. Albanese, who leads the centre-left Labour Party, voted in his electorate of Grayndler and Sydney's inner west. Earlier, he visited the eastern states of Queensland, Victoria and Tasmania on Friday. While Peter Dutton, who leads an alliance of conservative parties called the Liberal National Coalition, also voted in the country's national election in Brisbane along with his family. Taking a shot at the Labour government, Dutton said that Australians were experiencing a bad government.
Thank you, guys. Yep, let's do it.
Okay, thank you. At the election booth, so I'm confident that Australians have seen through a bad government, and I'm confident that Australians can't afford 3 more years of what they've experienced, and there are a lot of families who are really doing it very tough at the moment, and Australians can't afford 3 more years of Labor, and our positive plan.
Both major parties have focused on cost of living pressures, but opinion polls show that global uncertainty driven by Trump's stop-start tariffs rapidly became a top issue for voters during the campaign. Labour has accused the Conservative coalition of mimicking US President Donald Trump by promising to slash more than 1 in 5 federal public sector jobs.
Labor will get a majority, and I think Australians, because of the compulsory voting, because of that tendency to vote towards the centre, will mean that Dutton and his attempt to appeal to the centre right and the further right, by using these kind of Trumpian dog whistle policies, is going to fail.
Many who don't have a strong preference still turned out to vote in order to avoid a fine, often not picking a candidate until election day. Dutton is confident that undecided voters would back his coalition. Both campaigns have focused on Australia's changing demographics by promising policies, changes including helping the first home buyers buy into a property market that is too expensive for many. Another point of difference is energy. The opposition has promised to build 7 government-funded nuclear power plants across Australia that would begin generating electricity from the year 2035. Labour plans to have 82% of Australia's energy grid powered by renewables, including solar and wind turbines by 2030, and to rely less on gas. The party has warned that Dutton's coalition would make massive cuts to services to pay for its nuclear ambitions. This is the first election in Australia in which people born between the end of World War II and 1964 are outnumbered by younger voters. The growing disenchantment among voters has also emboldened independents pushing for greater transparency and climate progress. Our correspondent Dasuni Thoda is now joining us live from Melbourne, Australia. Good to see you, Dasuni. Over 7,000 voting booths opened countrywide from 8 a.m. Voters are being reminded that closing times will vary by time zone. Albanese says he's aiming for back-to-back wins. What have you managed to observe in regard to the voter turnout so far?
Absolutely. When we visited a couple of booths in and around the central area of Melbourne, and when we spoke to a few voters, some said that they were in line for as long as 2 hours to cast their ballot. And nevertheless, the voting process in itself is quite a relaxed affair here in Australia, and we're now just down to the final 1.5 hours, which allows voters to cast their votes. Now, voting will end at 6 p.m. according to each time zone. So certain states in Australia will be closing their polls shortly, whereas here in Melbourne, we've got about another 1.5 hours to go. So yes, Prime Minister Albanese is quite confident that he will emerge victorious and will secure a second successive term as a Prime Minister. And opinion polls also show and are also in favor of Prime Minister Albanese. So it seems to be on the cards, a win on the cards for him at the moment, Eric.
Dasuni, there are so many independent candidates in the race. Is their presence even being felt, or voters are concentrated more on the two main contenders, which is Albanese and Peter Dutton?
I think certainly the voters are looking at the two main contenders. However, you cannot disregard the fact that these independent candidates will help whoever who wins to form a majority in Parliament. So the question now comes to the winner of this election, either Dutton or Albanese, as to whether they will be able to form a majority or a minority government. A majority will certainly give way for whoever who wins to create legislation quite easily with lesser dissent, whereas a minority government would only make it a lot more difficult.
Dasuni, I thought good to see you. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you.
Not in the end. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
We're good? Put that in there.
All right, so we are waiting for a few moments from now because like I said, the counting of votes will vary according to different time zones. And the two main contenders, Anthony Albanese and Peter Dutton, have already cast their ballots. This is a chance for both of them to prove to voters in Australia that they will implement changes when it comes to the cost of living crisis that Australia is currently facing at this moment, or whether they will be going the Trump's way, and that is the tariffs. How are they going to manage the tariffs? And most of the voters in Australia are considered to be young voters or younger voters. So they will decide the future of their country. And this is a different kind of voting system in Australia, which goes by the level of preference to a candidate. So if Anthony Albanese or Peter Dutton win this election, it will be interesting to see if either of the two candidates will form a majority in Parliament, or how will the Parliament look like after Albanese maintains his term as Prime Minister of Australia.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.